My friends, everyone wants to be rich, but very few are willing to act rich before they actually become rich. We think wealth is about money in the bank, but true wealth begins with habits in the mind. So today, I won't teach you how to make millions overnight, but I'll share 5 simple habits that if you live them every single day, will make you rich, not just in your wallet, but in your wisdom, your relationships, and your peace of mind. Because real richness is not just about what you have, it's about what you become. Let me tell you something, my friends. The very first habit that will make you truly rich is the habit of gratitude. You see, we live in a world that constantly whispers in our ears, you need more, a better phone, a bigger house, a faster car, a higher salary. And without even realizing it, we start believing that our happiness, our worth, our richness depends on what we don't have yet. But the truth is, it doesn't. Because no matter how much you chase, there will always be something missing. Always someone richer, always someone more successful, always someone ahead. And if you keep looking outward, you will always feel poor, even if your pockets are full. Real richness begins when you learn to look inward, when you start saying, thank you, not as a polite phrase, but as a daily practice. When you wake up in the morning, and before you touch your phone, you whisper, thank you for another day. When you eat your meal and before you take the first bite, you think, thank you for this food. When you look at your loved ones, you pause and silently say, thank you for their presence in my life. Gratitude is not a weakness, it's strength. Because when you focus on what you already have, you stop feeling like you're as lacking. And a mind that doesn't feel lack becomes creative, focused, and peaceful. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop living in the noise of, I need this, I want that. And suddenly you start noticing how rich you already are. Think about it. How many things do we take for granted every single day? The breath in our lungs, the ability to see, to walk, to speak, to love, to try again. These are gifts beyond money. Someone in a hospital bed right now is praying for what you have this very moment. Someone in pain would trade everything they own just to live one day like you live every day. And yet, we complain. We focus on what's missing. And in doing so, we turn blessings into burdens. I once met a man who lived in a tiny room with barely any furniture. He smiled at me and said, I may not have much, but I sleep peacefully every night. And then I met another person, a millionaire, who told me, I haven't slept well in years. That day I realized a richness is not counted in currency. It's measured in contentment. When you live with gratitude, you start attracting abundance. Because gratitude shifts your energy, it changes how you see the world. It's like switching on a light in a dark room. You begin to notice the opportunities, the kindness, the support, the love that was always there. And once your mind becomes grateful, your actions follow. You work not from fear of losing, but from joy of growing. You earn not from greed, but from grace. You build not to prove your worth, but to express your gratitude to life itself. So, my friends, start today. Write down 3 things you're grateful for every morning or every night. And not just the big things. Be grateful for the sunlight on your face, the laughter of a friend, the sound of rain, the lessons hidden in pain. Because the more you acknowledge what's good, the more good you attract. Gratitude doesn't mean you stop wanting to grow. It means you grow from a place of fullness, not emptiness. You stop chasing richness, and you start creating it. And that's when life begins to pour abundance into your hands. Because you finally learned how to hold it. So remember this. You don't become rich after you start being grateful. You become rich because you're grateful. And the moment you start appreciating life, life starts appreciating you. My friends, if gratitude is the seed of richness, then learning is the sunlight that helps it grow. Let me tell you something from the heart. The world doesn't reward those who know everything. It rewards those who keep learning. The habit of learning daily is not about collecting degrees or memorizing facts. It's about cultivating curiosity. It's about having that inner fire that says, there's something new I can discover today. Have you ever noticed how children are always learning? They ask 1,000 questions, sometimes funny, sometimes impossible, but they never stop asking. Why? Because their eyes want to understand the world. And somewhere between growing up and growing older, we stop doing that. We start pretending we know enough. We stop being students and start being stuck. The day you stop learning is the day you stop growing. And when you stop growing, life begins to shrink around you. Opportunities dry up. Conversations lose depth. Your confidence fades. Not because the world is unfair, but because your mind stopped expanding. The richest minds I've met, they never act like they've arrived. They read, they listen, they ask questions. They sit quietly in rooms filled with people who know more than them. They don't see learning as a task, they see it as a gift. You see, knowledge is the only asset that appreciates over time. You can lose money, you can lose property, you can lose fame, but what you learn, that stays with you forever. It's portable wealth. You can carry it anywhere, use it anytime, and no one can ever take it away from you. Learning daily doesn't always mean reading books, though books are powerful. It means being open, listening deeply to someone's story, and realizing there's a lesson in it. Observing how nature works, how people behave, how success and failure unfold. Every situation, every person, every moment can be your teacher. And if your heart is humble enough to learn, sometimes the best lessons come from pain. Failure teaches you resilience. Heartbreak teaches you empathy. Loss teaches you the value of time. So don't run from the tough moments. Don't say, why is this happening to me? Say, what is this teaching me? That simple shift will turn every setback into a step forward. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that learning ends after school. But the truth is, that's when real learning begins. Because school gives you information, but life gives you wisdom. And wisdom only grows when you keep questioning, keep exploring, keep challenging your limits. I remember a wise teacher once told me, a day you don't learn something new is a day wasted. At that time, I smiled politely, but I didn't really get it. Now I do. Because every day that passes without growth, without learning, makes you a little more stagnant, like water that stops flowing. And stagnant water, no matter how pure it once was, eventually starts to stink. So keep your mind flowing, keep your curiosity alive. Make learning a daily ritual, not just a goal. If you read, read with hunger. If you listen, listen with humility. If you speak, speak from what you've learned, not what you've memorized. Every successful person, every great thinker, every innovator has one thing in common. They never stopped learning. They may have started poor, but they were rich in curiosity. And that curiosity led them to ideas, and those ideas built their fortunes. So here's something practical you can do. Every single day, invest at least 30 minutes in learning. read a chapter, watch a meaningful video, listen to an inspiring podcast, talk to someone wiser than you, ask questions, reflect, apply. Because learning without action is just information, but learning with action becomes transformation. Remember, my friends, ignorance is the most expensive thing in life. It costs you opportunities, relationships, and peace. But learning, that's the only investment that guarantees growth. So from this moment, promise yourself, you will be a student of life forever. You will never let your ego stop your education. And you will never confuse knowing with growing. Because the habit of learning doesn't just make you smart, it makes you adaptable, humble, confident, and truly rich in wisdom. Money can buy comfort, but learning buys clarity. And clarity, that's what leads to lasting success. So keep your mind open, your heart curious, and your soul teachable. Because every day you learn something new, you become someone new, and that, my friends, is the real definition of becoming rich. My friends, if gratitude makes your heart rich and learning makes your mind rich, then discipline. Discipline is what turns that inner richness into real world success. Let's be honest, discipline isn't glamorous. It's not exciting. It doesn't give you quick dopamine hits or instant rewards. But it's the quiet force behind every person you admire, every successful entrepreneur, every spiritual teacher, every great athlete, every artist, every leader. They all share one thing in common. They learned to do what they should do, even when they didn't feel like it. Because motivation will get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going. We all love that feeling of being motivated, don't we? That rush of energy after watching an inspiring video or reading a powerful quote. But tell me honestly, how long does it last? A day, a week, maybe a month. Motivation fades, feelings change. But discipline, that's the muscle you build when you keep going, even after the excitement disappears. You see, discipline isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about being committed to yourself. It's saying, I respect my goals enough to show up, even when it's not easy. When the alarm rings in the morning and your mind says, 5 more minutes, discipline whispers, no, get up, you made a promise to yourself. When temptation says, just one more scroll, one more episode, discipline says, you have something bigger to build. When fear says, what if I fail? Discipline answers, then I'll learn and try again. That's the voice of discipline. Quiet, steady, loyal. It doesn't shout for attention, but it shapes your destiny. I've seen many people with great talent fail because they never built consistency. And I've seen ordinary people with no special gifts rise to extraordinary heights simply because they showed up every single day. That's the power of discipline. We often think discipline means restriction, like it takes away our freedom. But in reality, it creates freedom. Because when you're disciplined with your time, your money, your habits, life starts working for you, not against you. You no longer live in chaos, you live in control. You no longer react to life, you direct it. Think about it. When you wake up early, when you exercise, when you manage your schedule, when you finish what you start, doesn't that give you peace? That peace is the reward of discipline, because it brings order to your inner and outer world. Let me share something simple yet powerful. Discipline is doing the boring work when nobody's watching. It's the artist practicing alone for hours before the performance. It's the student studying long after the class ends. It's the entrepreneur working quietly on ideas that nobody believes in yet. It's the person who keeps faith and effort alive when results are nowhere to be seen. People will look at your success one day and say, "You're so lucky," but they won't see the discipline behind it, the early mornings, the rejections, the sacrifices, the moments of doubt when you wanted to give up but didn't. Discipline is invisible until it becomes unforgettable. Sometimes discipline is misunderstood as punishment, but it's actually the highest form of self-love. Because when you discipline yourself, you're protecting your dreams. You're saying, "I love myself enough not to destroy my future for temporary comfort." You're saying, "I choose progress over pleasure," and that's a deeply loving act. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your self-respect. Every time you push through laziness, you prove to your mind that you are in control, not your moods, not your excuses. Discipline builds confidence, because when you do hard things consistently, you stop doubting yourself. You know you can rely on you. And that, my friends, is one of the richest feelings in the world, to trust your own strength. If you look at nature, even their discipline exists. The sun rises at the same time. The tides flow with rhythm. The seasons change in harmony. Everything in this universe follows discipline. That's why it functions beautifully. Only we humans resist it, and that's why our lives often feel out of balance. Start with small things. Make your bed. Wake up at the same time. Keep your workspace clean. Finish what you begin. Don't break promises. Every small act of discipline adds up. It builds momentum, focus, and eventually mastery. And yes, you will fail sometimes. You'll slip. You'll fall. You'll have days where nothing works. But remember, discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about coming back. It's about saying, "I'll try again tomorrow." Even if you take one small step every day, one consistent habit, one small promise kept, over time, it will transform your entire life. So if you want to become rich, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, make discipline your daily companion. Because discipline is the bridge between your dreams and your reality. Without it, everything stays in your head. With it, everything becomes possible. So from this day forward, my friends, remember, don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect time. Just start, even if it's hard, even if it's slow, because the richest person in the world is not the one with the most money. It's the one who has mastered themselves, and that mastery begins and ends with discipline. My friends, let's talk about something that might sound simple, but it separates the as financially free from the as financially trapped. It's a habit so basic, yet so rare, that most people spend their entire lives chasing wealth without ever mastering it. It's the habit of as saving before spending. No, I know what some of you might be thinking. I don't even earn enough to save. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Because saving is not about how much you earn. It's about how you think about what you earn. You can't build wealth if you spend like the poor. And you can't stay poor if you think like the rich. Let me tell you a truth that's as old as time. People don't get rich by earning more. They get rich by keeping more. And keeping more doesn't come from luck. It comes from the discipline. You see, most people do this. They get their salary. They pay their bills. They buy what they want. They go out. They eat. They shop. And then, if something's left at the end of the month, they try to save it. And what's usually left? Nothing. So, they say, next month I'll save. But next month comes, and it's the same story again. Because saving is not about what's left over. It's about what you decide first. The rule of wealth is simple. Don't save what's left after spending. Spend what's left after saving. As such, that single shift can change your life. Because when you save first, you're telling your money, I'm in control. But when you spend first, you're telling your money, you control me. Let me give you an image. Imagine you have two buckets, one for your savings and one for your spending. Every time you earn, you first fill your savings bucket. Even if it's small, 10%, 5%, even 1 cent. It's not about the A's amount, it's about the R's habit, because habits grow. And soon, that small drop becomes a stream, that stream becomes a river, and that river becomes wealth. When you save first, you plant seeds for your future. You're not just keeping money, you're keeping possibilities. You're giving yourself A's options. Because life is unpredictable. Emergencies happen, opportunities arise, and in both moments, whether crisis or chance, savings are your wings. They give you freedom to act without fear. Let me share a story. A young man once came to me and said, I don't have enough to save. I asked him, if tomorrow your phone broke, would you find the money to replace it? He said, of course. I smiled and said, so you do have the money. You just don't have the F priority. That's the truth, my friends. It's never about lack of money. It's about lack of awareness. When you start paying yourself first, you begin respecting your future. You stop living for short-term pleasure and start preparing for long-term peace. Because the comfort of today means nothing if it costs you the security of tomorrow. I know saving feels boring. It doesn't give you that instant thrill that spending does. But here's the secret. While others chase momentary pleasure, savers are quietly building as power. They're building a safety net that lets them take risks later without fear. They're buying freedom, one decision at a time. Saving is not about being stingy. It's about being strategic. It's not about refusing to enjoy life. It's about enjoying it wisely. Spend joyfully, yes, but not carelessly. Because joy should come from peace, not panic. And let me tell you, there's a deep peace that comes from knowing you have something set aside, that your next emergency won't break you, that your future is not depending on your next paycheck, that you can say no to toxic work, bad clients, or draining environments, because you've built a cushion that allows you to choose. That's real freedom. And freedom, my friends, is the highest form of wealth. But saving alone isn't enough. You must also learn to respect what you save. Don't treat your savings like a temporary storage you'll dip into whenever you feel bored or emotional. Treat it like something sacred. It's your seed. And if you keep digging it up, it will never grow. Automate it. The best savers don't think, they systemize. They make sure that every time they earn, a portion automatically goes to savings or investment before they even touch the rest. That's not luck. That's a strategy. And slowly something beautiful happens. Your mindset changes. You begin to realize that wealth isn't about having more things. It's about needing fewer things. You become more mindful of what you buy, what you waste, and what truly adds value to your life. You start seeing through the illusion of materialism. You stop buying things to impress others and start saving things to empower yourself. When you practice this habit long enough, saving no longer feels like a sacrifice. It feels like a source of strength. It becomes something you're proud of, because you're not saving out of fear, you're saving out of wisdom. And here's the irony, When you become disciplined with saving, life starts rewarding you in unexpected ways. You attract better opportunities, you make calmer decisions, and you start living with dignity because you're no longer reacting to money, you're directing it. So, my friends, let's make this simple but powerful commitment today. From your next income, no matter how big or small, save something, even if it's just a single coin. Because that coin is not small, it's a symbol. It says, I'm taking control. It says, my future matters. It says, I refuse to let money master me. I will master it. And one day when you look back, you'll realize that your richness didn't start when you made your first million. It started the day you kept your first rupee. That was the moment you became truly rich, not because you had more money, but because you had more as mindset. So remember, earning makes you a living, saving makes you a life, and that life is the foundation of true, lasting, and peaceful wealth. My friends, if saving builds your foundation of wealth, then this next habit, and investing in yourself, is what builds your palace upon it. You can lose money, you can lose things, you can lose people, but whatever you invest inside yourself, your knowledge, your mindset, your discipline, your health, can never be taken away. Because the greatest investment you will ever make is not in a company, not in stocks, not in real estate, but in you. Let me tell you something simple but powerful. Money grows only when you grow. Your income rarely exceeds your level of intelligence, discipline, or skill. If you want to make more, you have to become more. Because wealth doesn't just flow to people who work hard, it flows to people who add value, and value comes from one thing, a growth. You see, too many people want their life to change, but they don't want to change themselves. They keep wishing for better opportunities, but they're not preparing to receive them. They want the promotion, but they're not upgrading their skills. They want the business, but they're not learning about leadership, communication, or emotional strength. They want success, but they don't want the discipline that success demands. So they stay stuck, not because life is unfair, but because they've stopped investing in themselves. When you invest in yourself, you're telling the universe, I'm ready for more. When you buy a book instead of buying fast food, you're saying, I choose growth over comfort. When you spend time learning instead of scrolling endlessly, you're saying, my future deserves my focus. And when you work on your habits, your health, your mindset, you're silently preparing for a level of success that others won't understand until they see it. Think about it. If someone took away all your money, all your possessions, and dropped you somewhere with nothing but your skills, your knowledge, and your resilience, would you still find a way to rise again? If the answer is yes, that's because you've invested in yourself. And that kind of wealth, no one can ever steal. Most people want external growth before internal growth. They say, when I get more money, I'll start working on myself. But the truth is the opposite. When you start working on yourself, that's when you get more money. Because success is not something you chase. It's something you attract by the person you become. So ask yourself, when was the last time you read something that challenged your thinking? When was the last time you learned a new skill that scared you a little? When was the last time you took care of your body, your mind, and your peace like they were your biggest assets? Because they are. If your mind is weak, your money will never be strong. If your emotions are unstable, your business will always be chaotic. If your body is exhausted, your dreams will stay asleep. And if your spirit is empty, no amount of wealth will ever fill it. Invest in your health, eat clean, move daily, sleep deeply. A healthy body is not a luxury, it's a necessity for a wealthy life. Because energy is your greatest currency. You can't build an empire if you're constantly tired, anxious, and drained. Invest in your mind. Read, listen, question, reflect. Don't just learn what everyone else is learning, go deeper. Learn about psychology, about communication, about money management, about yourself. Because when your mind expands, your life expands. You stop being a prisoner of circumstances and become a creator of them. Invest in your emotions. Learn to stay calm when life tests you. Because emotional intelligence will take you where IQ alone never can. It's what helps you manage people, resolve conflicts, and make sound decisions when everyone else is losing their head. People who can manage their emotions often manage their empires. Invest in your environment. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, not drain you, because your circle is your mirror. If you keep company with lazy minds, your thinking will shrink. But if you stay close to learners, dreamers, and doers, their fire will ignite yours. And soon, you'll start to think bigger, act wiser, and grow faster. Invest in your spirituality. Take time every day to be silent, to breathe, to reflect, because money can buy a house, but not a home. It can buy a bed, but not sleep. It can buy entertainment, but not peace. That inner peace comes only when you connect with something deeper than material success. Your purpose, your gratitude, your sense of meaning. And yes, sometimes investing in yourself means making sacrifices.